Jungkook has over 50 million Instagram followers, a solo album that shattered global streaming records, and a face that's been called one of the most handsome in the world. But here's what's strange. The man who could probably date anyone on the planet has a list of relationship standards that has almost nothing to do with looks, fame, or money. Over the years, through BTS profile sheets, fan meetings, live broadcasts, and interviews, Jungkook has quietly dropped bits and pieces about what he actually wants in a life partner. Some of those details are exactly what you'd expect from a romantic. Others caught even the most dedicated ARMY completely off guard. And one particular detail, number 3 on this list, carries a weight that, once you understand the context behind it, hits differently than anything else he's ever said about love. So, what does the world's biggest pop star actually look for in a wife? The answers might change how you see him entirely. These are 5 real facts about Jungkook's criteria for a life partner. Number 5. He puts personality first. Jungkook. When Jungkook first debuted with BTS in June 2013, he was 15 years old. A kid from Busan who had left home at 14 to train under Big Hit Entertainment in Seoul, sleeping in a shared dorm room with 6 older guys, attending dance practice before school and vocal lessons after it. At that age, when interviewers or fans at early fan signing events asked him about his ideal type, his answers were about what you would expect from a teenage boy who had barely started high school. In BTS's earliest official Naver profile entries and their debut-era fan cafe posts, Jungkook listed physical traits. He mentioned things like someone with a nice figure, someone who is good at cooking, someone who is smart. Surface-level descriptors. The kind of answers you give when you are 15 and someone shoves a microphone in your face and asks you to describe your future wife in front of a camera. There is nothing wrong with those answers. They were honest. But they were also the answers of a boy who had not yet lived enough life to understand what actually matters in a relationship. What makes this particular fact interesting is not what Jungkook said at 15. It is how dramatically his answers changed as he grew older, and how consistent that change became over time. By the time BTS entered their middle era, roughly around 2016 to 2018, during the transition from the most beautiful moment in Life series into the Love Yourself albums, Jungkook's responses to the same ideal type questions started shifting in a noticeable direction. In fan meetings during this period, when attendees would ask him what kind of person he wanted to be with, he began steering away from physical descriptions almost entirely. Instead, he started talking about personality. He mentioned wanting someone who is kind, someone who is genuine, someone he could talk to comfortably without pretending to be someone he was not. This was not a sudden overnight transformation. It tracked closely with what was happening in Jungkook's own life during those years. Between 2016 and 2018, BTS went from being a mid-tier Korean idol group to becoming one of the most famous musical acts on the planet. Their album Wings, released in October 2016, was the first BTS album to chart on the Billboard 200, debuting at number 26. By May 2018, Love Yourself, Tear debuted at number 1. In the span of roughly 2 years, Jungkook went from performing in modest Korean concert halls to selling out stadiums across North America, Europe, and Asia. His daily life changed in ways that are difficult for most people to fully comprehend. He could no longer walk down a street without being recognized. His face was on billboards in Times Square. Every word he said in public was recorded, translated into dozens of languages, and analyzed by millions of people within hours. That kind of fame, arriving that fast, at that young an age, teaches you something specific about human relationships. It teaches you who is real and who is not. Jungkook was surrounded by people constantly, fans, staff, industry professionals, other celebrities, but the number of people who treated him as a normal human being rather than as a product or a fantasy was shrinking. In that environment, personality is not just a preference. It becomes a survival mechanism. You learn very quickly to value the people who are honest with you over the people who just tell you what you want to hear. You learn to appreciate someone who treats you the same way whether the cameras are rolling or not. This is the context behind Jungkook's shift. When he started saying that personality mattered more than looks, he was not reciting a scripted PR line designed to make him seem humble. He was describing a real psychological need that came directly from the specific pressures of his life. BTS has spoken about this pressure extensively. In their 2020 docuseries Break the Silence, all 7 members discuss the emotional toll of global fame, including the loneliness that comes with being constantly surrounded by people who do not actually know you. Jungkook, as the youngest member, was navigating this reality while still technically a teenager for much of it. He turned 20, by international age, in September 2017, right in the middle of BTS's explosive rise. By the time BTS was regularly doing interviews with major international outlets, appearances on shows like The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, performances at the American Music Awards, press conferences at the United Nations, Jungkook's language around relationships had become even more refined. He was no longer just saying he wanted someone kind. He was describing specific emotional qualities. In various Korean media interactions and Vlive broadcasts during the 2019 to 2020 period, Jungkook spoke about wanting someone who could make him feel comfortable. Not excited, not impressed, comfortable. The distinction matters. Excitement is temporary. Comfort implies safety, trust, and the ability to be vulnerable. For someone whose public life requires constant performance, smiling on cue, dancing with precision, maintaining a flawless image in front of millions, the idea of coming home to someone who lets you just exist, without expectation or judgment, carries enormous emotional weight. There is also a cultural layer to this that is worth understanding. In South Korean society, and particularly within the Korean entertainment industry, physical appearance carries significant social currency. The K-pop industry in particular is built on visual standards that are, by global comparison, extraordinarily strict. Trainees are weighed regularly. Diets are monitored. Cosmetic procedures are normalized. Idols are ranked by visuals within their own groups, and fan communities openly debate physical attractiveness as a category of talent. Jungkook himself has been consistently ranked among the most attractive K-pop idols in existence. In 2019, he was voted the most handsome face in the world by TC Candler's annual list, and he has appeared on similar rankings multiple times since. He exists at the very top of an industry that is obsessed with how people look. For someone in that position to repeatedly, publicly state that physical appearance is not what matters most to him in a partner is not a throwaway comment. It is a deliberate statement that goes against the fundamental currency of the world he operates in every single day. It suggests that Jungkook has thought carefully about what actually sustains a relationship long-term, and has concluded, through lived experience, not theory, that surface-level attraction is not enough. He has seen beautiful people behave badly. He has seen the gap between how someone looks and how someone treats you. And he has chosen, consistently, to prioritize the latter. What is particularly striking is how this preference has remained stable over time. Idol culture in South Korea often involves carefully managed public images, and it would be easy for an agency to coach an idol into giving relationship answers that sound mature or emotionally intelligent for branding purposes. But Jungkook's evolution on this topic happened gradually, across many years, in many different contexts: scripted interviews, unscripted live broadcasts, casual conversations with fans at signing events, and even in his interactions with the other BTS members on camera. In BTS's various reality shows, including Bon Voyage and Run BTS, Jungkook's behavior consistently aligns with what he says. He gravitates toward sincerity. He responds warmly to genuine emotion and becomes visibly uncomfortable around performative behavior. His preference for personality over appearance is not just something he says. It is something he lives. This is the foundation that everything else on this list builds from. Jungkook does not start with what someone looks like and work backward. He starts with who someone is. And as we move to the next fact, you will see exactly what kind of person he is looking for and why his expectations for a partner say as much about his own character as they do about his future relationship. Number 4. He wants a partner who grows with him. Jungkook. In 2011, a 13-year-old Jungkook from Busan appeared on the second season of the Korean talent competition Superstar K3. He did not win. He did not even make it particularly far. But his audition caught the attention of multiple entertainment agencies. Reportedly, 7 different companies reached out to him after his appearance on the show. He chose Big Hit Entertainment, which at the time was a small, financially struggling agency with none of the prestige of the big 3 SM, YG, and JYP. The reason Jungkook later gave for choosing Big Hit was simple. He saw Kim Namjoon, the future leader of BTS, at the company, and something about Namjoon made him feel like this was where he was supposed to be. A 13-year-old boy made one of the most consequential decisions of his life not based on money, resources, or brand power, but based on a gut feeling about another person. That instinct, the ability to recognize the right people and choose them, has defined Jungkook's life ever since. And it directly connects to what he looks for in a partner. When Jungkook moved to Seoul to begin training at Big Hit, he was 14. He left his parents, his older brother, his school friends, and everything familiar to him in Busan. He moved into a cramped dormitory with 6 trainees who were all older than him, some by as much as 5 years. Jin, the oldest, was born in 1992. Jungkook was born in 1997. In Korean culture, that age gap carries significant social weight. The Hyung-Dongsing dynamic, the relationship between an older and younger person, comes with expectations of respect, guidance, and responsibility on both sides. For Jungkook, the 6 members of BTS became something more than bandmates. They became the people who raised him during the most formative years of his life. This is not an exaggeration or a sentimental fan narrative. The members of BTS have spoken about this directly, on camera, multiple times. In the 2018 documentary Burn the Stage, which followed BTS during their Wings tour, several members reflected on their early years together. Jungkook himself talked about how he was so shy when he first arrived in Seoul that he would not even shower when the other members were awake. He waited until everyone was asleep. He barely spoke. He was, by his own admission, a scared kid who did not know how to function away from his family. It was the older members, particularly Jin, Suga, and J-Hope, who pulled him out of that shell. They taught him how to do laundry. They made sure he ate. They stayed up with him when he was homesick. They critiqued his dancing honestly, but never cruelly. They pushed him to improve while simultaneously making sure he knew he was valued for who he was, not just for what he could perform. That experience, being supported through the hardest transition of his young life by people who genuinely cared about his growth, left a permanent mark on how Jungkook understands relationships. When he talks about wanting a partner who can grow together with him and support each other's dreams, he is not borrowing language from a relationship advice book. He is describing the only model of deep human connection he has ever known. The BTS members supported each other through financial hardship, public criticism, exhausting tour schedules, and the mental health challenges that came with sudden global fame. And they did it mutually. It was never one-sided. When Jungkook was struggling, the older members held him up. When the older members faced their own difficulties, Suga's battle with depression, Jin's public insecurity about his musical abilities relative to the others, J-Hope's anxiety before performances, Jungkook, even as the youngest, stepped up in return. He learned that support is not something one person gives and the other receives. It is a system. It works because everyone contributes. This is exactly what he has described wanting in a romantic relationship. During fan meetings and live broadcasts across multiple years, Jungkook has returned to the same idea consistently. He wants someone who has her own dreams, her own goals, her own ambitions, and who pursues them with the same seriousness that he pursues his. Not someone who orbits his career. Not someone who exists in his shadow. A partner. The word matters. In Korean, the term he has used in various contexts aligns more closely with the concept of a companion on equal footing, someone walking beside you, not behind you. This distinction is significant, especially within the context of Korean relationship culture, which has historically carried more traditional gender dynamics around the roles of men and women in partnerships. Jungkook's position on this reflects something broader about his generation within South Korea. The younger generation of Koreans, particularly those born in the mid to late 1990s, has shown measurable shifts in attitudes toward relationships and gender roles compared to previous generations. Surveys conducted by the Korean Institute for Health and Social Affairs have documented a trend among younger Koreans toward valuing egalitarian partnerships, with both partners contributing equally to emotional labor, financial responsibility, and life decisions. Jungkook, born in 1997, sits squarely within this demographic shift. His desire for a mutually supportive partnership is not unusual for his age group. What makes it notable is his willingness to express it publicly, given the pressures of the idol industry. The K-pop industry has a complicated relationship with the concept of idols and romantic partnerships. For decades, the standard practice has been to maintain the illusion of availability. Idols are marketed, at least partially, on the fantasy that they could belong to any fan. Publicly discussing specific relationship preferences, especially ones that imply emotional maturity, independence, and equality, can disrupt that fantasy. Some agencies actively discourage it. The fact that Jungkook has spoken about wanting a partner with her own ambitions, someone who does not need him but chooses to be with him, someone who challenges him to be better while he does the same for her. These are statements that carry professional risk in his industry. He makes them anyway. That consistency suggests these are not rehearsed talking points. They're genuine convictions. There is also a practical dimension to this that is easy to overlook. Jungkook's career is not a normal job. Between 2013 and 2022, before his military enlistment, his schedule was relentless. World tours spanning months. Album production cycles that involved weeks of studio sessions running past midnight. Promotional schedules across multiple countries, often with only hours of sleep between appearances. His solo work added another layer. His 2023 single, 7, debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making him the first solo K-pop artist to achieve that position. His solo album Golden, released in November 2023, debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200. Maintaining a relationship alongside that kind of career demands a partner who does not just tolerate his absence, but understands it, because she has her own demanding life to manage. Mutual support, in Jungkook's world, is not a romantic ideal. It is a logistical necessity. This also connects to something Jungkook has demonstrated through his actions, not just his words. Throughout BTS's career, he has consistently invested in the success of the people around him. He has spoken publicly about studying video production to help create better content for BTS's YouTube channel. He personally filmed and edited several of his Golden Closet film travel vlogs. He learned to mix audio. He pushed himself to improve his English to communicate directly with international fans and interviewers. These are not the actions of someone who expects to be carried. They are the actions of someone who believes in earning his place through effort and who expects the same from the people closest to him. When Jungkook describes his ideal partner as someone who can grow together with him, he is drawing from a life that has been defined by exactly that kind of relationship, with his members, with his craft, with his audience. He knows what mutual growth looks like because he has lived it for over a decade. He knows what it feels like to have someone push you when you are being lazy and catch you when you are falling. And he knows that love, without that foundation of shared effort, does not hold up under pressure. But while mutual support defines what Jungkook wants the structure of a relationship to look like, the next fact on this list reveals something about the emotional texture he is looking for. And it is the one detail that has made more ARMY members pause and reflect than any other. Number 3. He dreams of an ordinary life. Jungkook. On the night of September 9, 2020, Jungkook went live on Weverse from his apartment. It was late. He was alone. He had a glass of wine, some snacks he had prepared himself, and a quiet room with no staff, no cameras from a production crew, no schedule to rush to next. For nearly an hour, he just sat there, talking to fans through the screen, eating, drinking, occasionally humming a song. There was no agenda, no promotion, no carefully curated content. It was just Jungkook, sitting in his home, doing what millions of ordinary 22-year-olds do on a weeknight, having a drink, relaxing, existing in his own space. Fans who watched that broadcast live described it as one of the most intimate and genuine moments Jungkook had ever shared publicly. But there was something underneath that broadcast that many ARMY did not immediately recognize, and once they did, it became one of the most discussed and emotionally charged topics in the fandom. The thing Jungkook seemed happiest doing that night, the thing that made his voice softer and his body language more relaxed than almost any stage performance, was something profoundly ordinary. And the reason that hits so hard is because, for Jungkook, ordinary is the one thing he cannot have. Jungkook has mentioned in multiple interviews and live broadcasts across several years that his idea of happiness with a partner is not extravagant. He has not described dream dates involving expensive restaurants, luxury vacations, or grand romantic gestures. Instead, the scenarios he has painted are small. Cooking a meal together at home, watching a movie on the couch, taking a walk, playing with a dog, sitting in comfortable silence without feeling the need to fill every moment with conversation. These are things that most people in their 20s experience without thinking twice about them. For Jungkook, they represent something closer to a fantasy. To understand why this fact resonates with ARMY the way it does, and why it genuinely makes many fans sad, you need to understand what Jungkook's daily reality actually looks like. Since 2017, when BTS's fame crossed from national to global, Jungkook has not been able to do most of the things he describes wanting. He cannot walk into a convenience store in Seoul without being recognized. He cannot sit in a cafe. He cannot ride public transportation. He cannot go to a movie theater. When BTS traveled internationally for tours, the airports became controlled chaos, hundreds, sometimes thousands of fans and paparazzi waiting at arrival gates, security teams forming human walls to escort the members through terminals. In South Korea, sightseeing fans, obsessive individuals who cross the line from fandom into stalking, have been a documented problem for BTS since at least 2015. There have been reported incidents of unauthorized individuals obtaining the members' personal phone numbers, following their private vehicles, and attempting to book seats on the same flights. Big Hit Entertainment, now Hybe, has filed multiple legal complaints against sightseeing behavior over the years. This is the environment in which Jungkook lives. Not occasionally. Every day. Every time he steps outside his door, he enters a world where his physical presence causes a logistical event. The simple act of walking down a street becomes a security operation. A dinner at a restaurant requires advanced coordination, private rooms, back entrances, and staff who can be trusted not to leak his location on social media. The most basic activities of normal human life, the ones he describes wanting to share with a future partner, are activities that his level of fame has made functionally impossible in any ordinary sense. And Jungkook knows this. That is what makes it ache. He is not naive about his circumstances. In the 2020 docuseries Break the Silence, the movie, he reflected on the costs of fame with a clarity that was striking for someone who was still only 22 at the time. He talked about the gap between the person on stage and the person off stage. He acknowledged that the life he lives is extraordinary by any objective measure, the sold-out stadiums, the music, the global reach. But he also acknowledged, without self-pity, that extraordinariness comes with a specific kind of loss. The loss of normalcy. The loss of anonymity. The loss of being able to experience the world the way most people do, without every moment being observed, documented, and judged. This is where the sadness comes from for ARMY. It is not a dramatic, theatrical sadness. It is a quiet one. It comes from the realization that the person they adore, the person whose concerts they attend, whose albums they stream, whose face they put on their phone wallpapers, wants something they cannot give him by being fans. In fact, in a certain painful irony, the intensity of the fandom is part of what makes his wish for simplicity so unreachable. The more people love Jungkook publicly, the harder it becomes for him to live privately. Every fan who screams his name at an airport is, without meaning to, adding another brick to the wall between Jungkook and the ordinary life he daydreams about. ARMY understands this. And that understanding, that the love they give him is part of what keeps him from the life he wants, is a contradiction that sits heavily with a lot of fans. Jungkook's desire for simplicity also shows up in how he actually spends his free time, which reinforces that this is not a performed humility, but a genuine orientation. When he is not working, he does not post about luxury purchases or celebrity social events. His personal content, the vlogs, the live broadcasts, the behind-the-scenes footage consistently shows him doing low-key things. Drawing in a sketchbook, working out alone at a gym, playing with his Doberman, Bam, who he adopted in 2021, cooking meals that are not fancy ramen, grilled meat, simple Korean side dishes, playing video games. These are the activities of someone whose natural comfort zone is domestic, private, and unadorned. When Jungkook says he wants simplicity in a relationship, his entire off-camera life confirms it. There is a song that brings this into even sharper focus. In June 2020, Jungkook released Still With You as a free track during BTS's annual Festa celebration. He wrote and participated in producing the song himself. The lyrics describe missing someone during a period of separation, walking alone in the rain, sitting in an empty room, holding onto the traces of a person who is not there. The song is stripped down, built on a gentle jazz beat with minimal instrumentation, and Jungkook's vocal delivery is restrained, almost conversational. It does not reach for dramatic high notes or emotional explosions. It just sits in the feeling. The loneliness in that song is not theatrical. It is domestic. It is the loneliness of an empty apartment, a meal eaten alone, a night that is too quiet. Fans interpreted the song as being about missing ARMY during the COVID-19 pandemic, when concerts were impossible. But the emotional texture of the song, the ache for presence, for someone physically there, for shared mundane moments, maps directly onto what Jungkook has described wanting in a relationship. This is also connected to his upbringing. Jungkook grew up in Busan, not in Seoul. His family was not wealthy. His parents were not in the entertainment industry. The life he knew before Big Hit was ordinary in the most specific, concrete sense: family dinners, school, neighborhood friends, the kind of childhood where happiness was not purchased, but simply experienced in the daily rhythm of being together. When he left that behind at 14, he gained the career of a lifetime but lost access to the texture of that life. The simplicity he describes wanting in a partner is, at its core, a desire to return to something that feels like the emotional register of his childhood: safe, warm, uncomplicated, and real. What hits hardest about this fact is the gap. The gap between who Jungkook is to the world, a global superstar, a record-breaking solo artist, a face recognized on every continent, and who Jungkook seems to want to be at home. At home, he does not want spectacle. He does not want someone who is impressed by him. He wants someone who will sit next to him on the couch, share a bowl of ramen, and make the apartment feel less empty. That is it. That is the whole wish. And the reason it makes ARMY sad is because it is such a small wish, and yet his life has made it one of the hardest things in the world for him to have. But if number 3 shows what Jungkook wants a relationship to feel like, the next fact reveals something deeper: what he needs a relationship to be built on, and why his standards on this point are non-negotiable. Number 2, he needs someone who sees the world the way he does, Jungkook. In September 2018, Jungkook stood inside the United Nations General Assembly Hall in New York City. He was 20 years old. Beside him were the 6 other members of BTS, and in front of him was a room full of diplomats, heads of state, and international officials representing virtually every country on Earth. BTS had been invited to speak as part of UNICEF's Generation Unlimited initiative, a global partnership aimed at expanding education, training, and employment opportunities for young people. The speech was delivered primarily by RM, BTS's leader, but the moment belonged to all 7 of them. They were not there as entertainers performing a set. They were there as advocates, using the platform their music had built to talk about self-worth, mental health, and the importance of young people finding their own voices. That appearance was not a one-time event. BTS returned to the United Nations in 2020 with a recorded message during the COVID-19 pandemic and again in September 2021, this time as special presidential envoys for future generations and culture, appointed by South Korean President Moon Jae-in. At 23, Jungkook held a diplomatic title. The kid from Busan who could not shower in front of his roommates was now representing his country on a global stage, not through music, but through values. This matters because it tells you something fundamental about who Jungkook is beyond the idol persona. His values are not abstract. They have been expressed through concrete, public, documented actions over a sustained period of time. And when he talks about wanting a partner who shares his values and life goals, he is not speaking loosely. He is describing a compatibility requirement that is directly connected to the specific kind of life he leads and the specific kind of person he has worked to become. The concept Jungkook is reaching for has a specific term in Korean culture, pronounced gachagwon. It translates roughly to worldview or value system, but it carries more weight in Korean than the English translations suggest. In Korean relationship culture, gachagwon compatibility is one of the most frequently cited factors in determining whether a partnership will last. It goes beyond surface-level agreement on lifestyle preferences. It encompasses how you think about money, family, ambition, sacrifice, responsibility, fairness, and what constitutes a meaningful life. Korean matchmaking culture, both traditional and modern, places enormous emphasis on gachagwon alignment, sometimes even above romantic attraction. The underlying logic is practical. Attraction fluctuates. Circumstances change. But if two people fundamentally agree on what matters in life, they can navigate almost anything together. If they do not, even the strongest initial chemistry will eventually fracture under the weight of incompatible priorities. Jungkook's own gachagwon has been on public display for over a decade, which means any potential partner is not evaluating a mystery. His values are documented in thousands of hours of footage, interviews, songs, and public statements. Here is what that record shows. First, work ethic. Jungkook's dedication to his craft is not a matter of fan opinion. It is an observable, measurable reality. He joined Big Hit Entertainment as a trainee with strong vocal ability but limited dance skills. By BTS's debut in 2013, he was one of the strongest dancers in the group. He did not achieve that through natural talent alone. He achieved it through a training regimen that multiple BTS members and Big Hit staff have described as relentless. He was consistently the last one to leave the practice room. He repeated choreography sequences until his body moved without conscious thought. After debut, he continued pushing. He taught himself to edit video, producing his own travel vlogs, the Golden Closet films, that demonstrated a level of technical competence that surprised even professional videographers who analyzed them. He studied vocal technique with enough seriousness that vocal coaches who have reviewed his performances publicly have noted significant, deliberate technical improvement between BTS's early and later eras. He learned to compose and produce music, contributing to BTS tracks and eventually creating solo work. He is called the Golden Magne, a nickname given by fans and media to describe his apparent ability to excel at everything he attempts, but the name obscures the mechanism. He is not effortlessly good at things. He works at them with an intensity that borders on compulsive. A partner who does not share that relationship with effort, discipline, and self-improvement would find herself in a fundamental values mismatch from day one. Second, family. Jungkook's relationship with his family has remained consistent and visible throughout his career. He has spoken about his parents and his older brother, John Jung-yeon, with warmth and respect in numerous interviews and broadcasts. He purchased an apartment for his parents in Seoul, a move reported by Korean media, which in Korean culture is considered one of the highest expressions of filial devotion. The importance of family in his value system is not something he performs for cameras. It aligns with the broader Korean cultural emphasis on filial piety, but in Jungkook's case, it also connects to something personal. His parents supported his decision to leave home at 14 for an uncertain career in entertainment. That support, given at significant personal cost to his family, is something Jungkook has acknowledged with a level of emotional awareness that suggests he does not take it for granted. A partner who does not value family, or who does not understand the specific weight that family carries in Korean culture and in Jungkook's personal history, would be incompatible in a way that no amount of romantic chemistry could bridge. Third, authenticity. This is perhaps the value that runs deepest in everything Jungkook says and does. BTS's entire artistic identity, from their earliest albums addressing social pressure and mental health in Korean youth, through the Love Yourself series, to the map of the soul albums that drew directly from Jungian psychology, is built on the idea that being honest about who you are is more important than performing an acceptable version of yourself. Jungkook has internalized this thoroughly. His public behavior consistently reflects a person who is uncomfortable with pretense. In behind-the-scenes footage and variety show appearances, he is visibly more engaged when conversations are genuine and more withdrawn when situations feel forced or performative. His tattoos, which he began getting around 2019, a decision that was somewhat controversial in the conservative Korean entertainment landscape, are another expression of this. He chose to permanently alter his appearance in a way that reflected his personal identity, despite knowing it would attract criticism from certain segments of the public and media. That is a value statement. It says that self-expression matters more to him than universal approval. Fourth, purpose. Jungkook's involvement in BTS's philanthropic work is not peripheral. The group's Love Myself campaign, launched in partnership with UNICEF in November 2017, raised over $3.6 million in its first 2 years to support programs addressing violence against children and teens. BTS members personally contributed to this fund. Their UN appearances were not photo opportunities, they were extensions of a message the group had been embedding in their music since debut. For Jungkook, this sense of purpose, the belief that the platform fame provides should be used for something beyond personal enrichment, is a core part of his identity. He has lived inside this philosophy since he was a teenager. A partner who views life primarily through the lens of personal comfort or material accumulation, without a sense of responsibility towards something larger, would be occupying a fundamentally different moral universe. This is what makes Jungkook's insistence on shared values more than a standard relationship preference. His values are not casual opinions. They are commitments that have shaped his career, his public identity, his financial decisions, and his emotional development over more than a decade. Matching them requires a person of specific substance, someone with her own discipline, her own sense of purpose, her own relationship with authenticity, and her own understanding of what family means. The bar is high not because Jungkook is demanding, but because his life is built on a foundation that only a certain kind of person can stand on without cracking. And yet, as specific as all of this is, there is one criterion that Jungkook has placed above everything else, one requirement so fundamental that, without it, none of the others matter at all. Number 1, he will not build a relationship without trust. Jungkook. On October 28, 2018, a post appeared on a Korean online community forum that alleged a private dating relationship between a prominent K-pop idol and another public figure. Within hours, the post had been screenshotted, reposted, translated, and distributed across social media platforms in over a dozen languages. The idol's agency issued a denial. The internet debated. Fan communities fractured between those defending the idol and those who felt betrayed. The details of that specific incident do not matter here. What matters is the pattern, because this is the world Jungkook exists in. A world where private romantic relationships, if discovered, become international news events. Where a single photograph taken by a bystander with a phone can end up on the front page of Dispatch, South Korea's most aggressive entertainment news outlet, which has built its brand on breaking celebrity dating stories, typically releasing its biggest exposés on January 1st of each year as a New Year's exclusive. Where the line between a personal life and public property has been effectively erased for anyone at Jungkook's level of fame. This is the environment in which Jungkook has said, repeatedly and across many years, that honesty and trust are the foundation of any relationship he would enter. And when you understand the specific pressures of that environment, you realize he is not stating a romantic preference. He is stating a survival requirement. Consider what trust actually means in the practical context of dating someone like Jungkook. Your partner is recognized by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. His face has been on Times Square billboards, Coca-Cola campaigns, and Calvin Klein advertisements. His solo single, 7, featuring Latto, spent weeks on the Billboard Hot 100 after debuting at #1 in July 2023. His every public appearance is photographed from dozens of angles simultaneously. If you are in a relationship with this person, your own anonymity is one mistake away from evaporating entirely. One leaked text message. One security camera image at the wrong location. One acquaintance who sells information to a tabloid. The trust required to navigate that reality is not the ordinary trust of a normal relationship, trusting that your partner is faithful, that they mean what they say, that they will show up when they say they will. It is a trust that extends to operational security. Can I trust that you will not tell your closest friend, who might tell someone else, who might post it online? Can I trust that you understand what is at stake, not just for our relationship, but for my career, my group, my members, and the millions of people whose livelihoods are connected to the BTS brand? This is not hypothetical anxiety. The K-pop industry has a long, well-documented history of dating revelations causing significant professional damage to idols. When EXO's Baekhyun and Girls' Generation's Taeyeon were confirmed to be dating by Dispatch in June 2014, the backlash was severe enough that Baekhyun posted a public apology on Instagram for dating. When Hyuna and Adon of Pentagon confirmed their relationship in August 2018, Adon was ultimately removed from the group, and Pentagon's commercial trajectory was fundamentally altered. These are not ancient history examples. They occurred during BTS's active career. Jungkook watched these situations unfold in real time within his own industry. He saw colleagues and peers face professional consequences for the simple act of being in a relationship. The lesson those examples teach is brutal but clear. In K-pop, a relationship that becomes public without being carefully managed can cost you everything. And the most common way relationships become public is through a failure of trust. Someone talks. Someone gets careless. Someone does not fully understand the weight of the secret they are carrying. Jungkook's emphasis on trust, then, is not the standard romantic ideal of "I want someone I can trust." It is a highly specific, experience-informed recognition that trust, in his world, is the single structural element that holds everything together. Without it, a relationship is not just emotionally unstable, it is professionally dangerous. The person he is with must understand this intuitively, not because he explains it to them, but because they grasp the reality of his life deeply enough to act accordingly without being told. That level of trust takes time. It requires observation, consistency, and proof delivered through behavior, not words. This connects to something Jungkook has demonstrated in his own public behavior, his relationship with honesty. Throughout BTS's career, Jungkook has been notably transparent in moments where other idols might choose to perform a more polished version of reality. In Vlive broadcasts, he has talked openly about feeling uncertain about his abilities. During the filming of Bon Voyage Season 3 in Malta in 2018, he had an emotional conversation with RM about his insecurities and his desire to improve, a conversation that was broadcast to millions of viewers. In the Burn the Stage docuseries, there is a well-known moment where Jungkook is visibly upset backstage after a performance in which he felt his vocals were not up to his own standard. He did not hide the frustration. He did not perform composure for the camera. He let the moment exist as it was raw, unedited, honest. These moments are not weaknesses in his public image. They are the foundation of it. ARMY trusts Jungkook precisely because he has shown them who he actually is, including the parts that are imperfect. He has earned trust by being honest, and he expects the same from anyone he lets into his private life. There is also a deeper psychological layer to this. Jungkook left his family at 14. He moved into a dormitory with near strangers. He placed his entire future, his education, his adolescence, his social development, in the hands of an entertainment company and 6 older boys he barely knew. That is an act of enormous trust for a child. And it was rewarded. The BTS members became his family. Big Hit, despite the grueling training environment, ultimately provided the platform that changed his life. But that experience also taught Jungkook what betrayed trust feels like by contrast. In the K-pop industry, stories of exploitative agencies, broken promises, unfair contracts, and manipulative management are not rare. They are systemic. BTS's own early years involved financial hardship significant enough that the group nearly disbanded. Jungkook grew up inside an industry where trust is frequently weaponized, and where the people who smile at you the widest are sometimes the ones calculating how to use you most efficiently. That environment sharpens your ability to detect sincerity. It also raises your threshold for granting trust. When Jungkook says trust is non-negotiable, he is speaking from a place of learned vigilance, not naive idealism. His military enlistment adds another dimension to this. Jungkook enlisted in the Korean military in December 2022, along with the other BTS members, fulfilling South Korea's mandatory military service requirement. Military service in South Korea lasts approximately 18 months. During that time, contact with the outside world is limited. Phone access is restricted. Personal time is minimal. If Jungkook were in a relationship during that period or entered one after completing his service, the trust required would be immense. 18 months of limited communication, no public appearances together, no ability to monitor or manage the relationship in real time. The relationship would survive entirely on the strength of the trust established before the separation. There are no shortcuts. There are no workarounds. Either the trust is there or it is not. This is why trust sits at number 1. Not because it is the most dramatic criterion, but because it is the most essential. Every other item on this list, personality over appearance, mutual support, simplicity, shared values, depends on trust to function. You cannot show someone your true personality if you do not trust them not to use it against you. You cannot support each other's dreams if you do not trust that the support will be reciprocated. You cannot share simple, quiet, domestic moments if you do not trust that those moments will remain private. You cannot align your values with someone if you do not trust that they are showing you their real values and not a performance. Trust is not one criterion among 5. It is the infrastructure on which all the others are built.
Step back and look at these 5 facts together, and something becomes clear. Jungkook is not describing a fantasy. He is not listing features on a checklist the way a teenager might describe a dream partner in a school notebook. He is describing a real, functioning human relationship, the kind that requires 2 complete, emotionally mature people who choose each other deliberately and sustain that choice through effort, honesty, and mutual respect. Personality over appearance means he is looking past the surface. Mutual support means he refuses to be in a one-sided dynamic. Simplicity means he knows that happiness is not purchased. It is built quietly, in private, away from the noise. Shared values mean he needs compatibility at the deepest level, not just chemistry at the surface. And trust means all of it collapses without a foundation of radical honesty. What is striking is how these criteria reflect Jungkook himself. The portrait that emerges is not of a global superstar with impossible standards. It is of a man, 27 years old, shaped by a life that most people cannot imagine, who wants something remarkably human. A partner, a home, a relationship where both people are real, both people try, and both people stay. And maybe the reason these facts resonate so deeply with ARMY is not because they reveal something surprising about Jungkook. It is because they confirm something fans have always sensed, that underneath the records, the sold-out stadiums, and the global fame, Jungkook is still, at his core, the kid from Busan who just wants someone to come home to. If this resonated with you, leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button, because there is always more to the story.